In that episode, I present top 10 the cruelest women in history. 10. Queen Mary I, years from 1516 to 1558. She was the only child of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, who was destined to survive childhood. Crowned after the death of Edward VI and the removal of the Queen Lady Jane Grey, Mary was saved for the temporary restoration of Catholicism in England. Many prominent Protestants were executed for their faith, so Mary earned the nickname Bloody Mary. Fearing further gallows, many have fled the country, returning after her death. 9. Ilse Koch, years from 1906 to 1967. Witch of Buchenwald was the wife of Karl Koch, commandant of the Buchenwald concentration camp from 1937 until 1941, and the camp at Majdanek from 1941 to 1943. Drunk with absolute power which her husband had, was characterized by the inhumanity and cruelty. Notoriety thanks to, among others, tattoos peeled from executed prisoners and the pervasive immorality. In 1941, she was promoted to SS Oberaufseherin, the main supervisor women's camp. On September 1, 1967, she committed suicide in Eichach Women's Prison, where she was serving a sentence of life. 8. Irma Grese, years from 1923 to 1945. Another product of the German final solution, Irma Grese, called Bitch of Belsen or Beautiful Beast, was the guardian of the Ravensbrück concentration camp, Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. Transferred to Auschwitz in 1943 for special enthusiasm and dedication to work, has been promoted on Oberaufseherin, Deputy Principal Overseer Women's Camp in Birkenau. She supervised 30,000 Jewish prisoners. Her classes included harassment charges by 100 unschooled dogs, sexual abuse, shooting, beating whip with studs, and selection of prisoners to the gas chambers. She was judged during the process Bergen-Belsen and hanged on 30 September 1945 in Hameln prison. 7. Queen Isabella Catholic I, years from 1451 to 1504. Queen of Spain, Isabella, is best known to the average citizen as the patron and sponsor of expedition of Christopher Columbus. It is thanks to her and her husband Ferdinand II Aragon became possible unification of Spain. As one of the measures to help unify the kingdom, Isabella I appointed Thomas de Torquemada to the Grand Inquisitor. On March 31, 1492, he published the expulsion edicts, which said that Jews and Muslims had to leave Spain or transition to Catholicism. As a result, more than 200,000 people had to leave the Iberian Peninsula. Those who decided to change the faith often were persecuted and tortured. In 1974, Pope Paul VI instituted process beatification of Queen Isabella I Catholic. Among the followers of the Catholic Church, she is deemed a servant of God. 6. Katherine Knight, from 1956 till now. Katherine Knight is the first citizen of Australia who was sentenced to life in prison without parole, mainly because of stormy history of her relationships. One of her ex-husbands, she busted Joe, in sight of another, slashed the throat of their 8-week puppy. To white audience, most certainly stuck in mind her relationship with John Charles Thomas Price, who was stabbed with a kitchen knife. In total, John Price has received 37 blows. Katherine then ripped him from the skin and hung this kind of suit on the doorframe in the living room. Also cut off his head and put her into a pot of soup, baked his buttocks, and prepared gravy and vegetables to these unusual roasts. This meal wanted to apply for their children, but the police managed to thwart the plan of Mrs. Knight before kids returned home. 5. Belle Gunness, years from 1859 to 1931. Belle Gunness was one of the most degenerate serial killers. This measuring 183 centimeters and weighing more than 90 kilograms woman proven to kill most of her cohabitants and her two daughters, Myrtle and Lucy. Most likely also killed two of her husbands and their children together. Them was clear and simple: life insurance and valuables taken lovers. Mrs. Gunn's number of victims over several decades is estimated at about 20. 4. Mary Ann Cotton, years from 1832 to 1873. Englishwoman Mary Ann Cotton is another insurance serial killer who began their infamous activities for about 30 years before Belle Gunness. She married at the age of 20 years for William Mowbray. Newlyweds settled in Plymouth in Devon to start a family there. A couple went through 5 children, of whom 4 died of typhoid and abdominal pain. The tragic fate didn't leave them even if they changed residence. They gave birth to 3 more children and all died. Soon they were joined by poor William, died on gut problems in the January 1865. British insurance company paid the widow £35. Her second husband, George, also died in the so-called intestinal problems, as her 2 subsequent children. On the trail of Mary Ann caught only one of the local newspapers, which found that the killer moves in the north of England, has already lost 3 men, lover, friend, mother and 12 children. All died as a result of gastric problems. Mary Ann Cotton was hanged March 24, 1873 for multiple murder with arsenic. 3. Myra Hindley, years from 1942 to 2002. Myra Hindley and Ian Brady were responsible for a series of murders in the city of Manchester in the middle 60s. These 2 monsters kidnapped, sexually exploited, tortured and eventually murdered 3 children under 12 years of age, one aged 16 and one aged 17. The key evidence in the case was found in the luggage locker at the train station in Manchester. It was a cassette which recorded the screams of one of the victims of the torture and rape. Myra Hindley was always cocky and arrogant, what has become her trademark. One of the police secretaries, Sandra Wilkinson, said that she never forget the view of Hindley and her mother Nellie in court over Fitzwiz. While the mother was visibly upset, Hindley seemed unmoved this whole situation. 2. Beverley ALLITT, from 1968 till now. Angel of Death, Beverley Gale ALLITT, is one of the most famous serial killer women in the United Kingdom. She worked as a nurse in the children's ward and is responsible for the murder of 4 children and inflict serious damage 5 others who were under her care. As soon as she had the opportunity, she injected insulin or potassium to children, which resulted in cardiac arrest. She was found guilty of causing death or serious injury of 9 young patients. In the end, ALLITT, during her 58-day work period, attacked 13 children until she was caught in the act. Never revealed the motives of her crimes. Psychologists and psychiatrists spoke mostly about Munchausen syndrome, a disorder that triggers the patient's desire and need to hurt others to get attention. 1. Elizabeth Bathory, years from 1560 to 1614. Countess Elizabeth Bathory is considered to be the cruelest serial killer in Hungarian-Slovak history. Over the years, there were rumors of lost rural girls who have previously offered a well-paid job at the castle and that no one never seen before. One such rumor reached the ears of the King of Hungary, Matthew II, who sent his men to examine that. In Ksejce castle, men found the dead women, wounded, dying and kept in captivity. Atrocities committed by Elizabeth Bathory was hard to describe. Repeated and prolonged beatings, pricking, burning, crushing hands, often face and genitals, and starvation victims. The total number of victims isn't known, but for 25 years of her reign, Bathory could kill up to several hundred of her subjects. Because of her social status, Elizabeth Bathory never stand trial, but for the rest of her days lived in the house arrest. The rumor that the countess bathed in the blood of her subjects is only folktale, and one of the few things that the queen didn't commit. 9. Feet bandaging. Feet binding is one of the most cruel practices in the world. Its origins date back to the 10th century and Tang dynasty. This Chinese tradition referred to women whose feet had to be limited in such way as to lead the smallest size. Initially, it was a determinant of social status and indicated that a girl is from higher social class. However, during the reign of the Qing dynasty, this custom has spread to all social Dysplasia verruciformis. This is a rare skin disease, also known as Lewandowski-Lutz dysplasia, occurs in people with certain genetic conditions. It is caused by a virus of HPV human. On patient's body appear lumps and discoloration. In the most extreme cases, the accumulation of growths on the body is so large that exclude patients with a normal life. They usually have a structure that resembles wood. In recent years, several